What is actually happening inside Umkhonto We Sizwe Party? There are a few things that don't add up at all. Nhlamulo Ndhlela is a senior member of the MKP and he has been there from the very beginning. It is inconceivable that he, or anyone else for that matter, would wake up in the morning and decide to call a media briefing about which party leader Jacob Zuma, let alone others in the top leadership, knows nothing. And why would senior leaders of the party, including Zuma himself and Deputy President John Hlophe, attend such a media briefing? In this episode, I ask, did Ndhlela go rogue or has Zuma thrown him under the bus? Hello everyone, welcome back to Joe Talks Politics. I am your host, Joseph Musia. Let's get right into this. It is concerning that MKP leaders want the country to believe that its top two leaders attended a media briefing without being fully informed of its contents or on their respective roles at that event. Zuma has been in leadership positions for most of his life. He has attended countless media briefings before. Even if he did not conceptualize the idea of an MK Institute, I doubt that anyone would have managed to organize the whole thing without his knowledge. His presence at that media briefing says he knew exactly what it was about. So, why is he so quiet? At the media briefing where Secretary General Sibonelo Nomvalo announced Ndlela's removal, Zuma did not speak and did not take questions from the media. What is happening? Here is my take. I believe Jacob Zuma knew about and approved the whole institute idea. His political style is not that of a ceremonial figurehead who casually arrives at events without understanding their political influence. The MK Institute briefing was organized, scripted, attended by senior leaders and publicly framed as a major structural intervention. That could not realistically happen without Zuma's prior awareness.
President Zuma today announces the formal establishment of the Umkhonto We Sizwe Party Institute, which will assume responsibility for strategic, ideological, philosophical, organizational, and the liberation agenda of the movement. The institute, politically led by the first Deputy President, Dr. Hlophe, will comprise of the following members. We start with Dr. Khanyisile Litchfield Shabalala, our Chief Whip, Mabatu Mukwena Zondi, Comrade Opa Matebula, General Manana, who is absent in this, couldn't make this presser, and of course the head of the presidency that's been recently appointed, Comrade Mbambo.
The wording around the institute was far-reaching. It effectively implied that a new structure would oversee political management and administration of the party. Because the institute looked like an attempt to formalize a court around Zuma into an actual governing authority, it alarmed important stakeholders, including some provincial organizers, MPs, parliamentary leadership, ambitious regional actors, and older operatives who fought to build the party.
The institute will assume full responsibility for the management and administration of the organization. All discussions, engagement, and official communication with President Zuma shall henceforth be conducted through the members of the institute. Oh, let me not forget that, yes, I'm part of the institute myself. Furthermore, all organizational structures will now report directly to the institute and will assume responsibility for the review, alignment, and strengthening of all organizational prescripts, governance frameworks, constitutional provisions, and leadership structures of the MK Party in line with the strategic reorganization agenda of the movement. The process will include the reconfiguration of existing national leadership models to ensure a more coherent, disciplined, efficient, and liberation-oriented organizational architecture. Henceforth, the members of the Institute shall serve as ex officio members of all current and existing organizational structures and leadership formations of the movement during the duration of this transitional and reconfiguration process, in order to ensure organizational continuity, strategic coherence, effective coordination, and the uniform implementation of the movement's program of action until the final reconfiguration process is concluded.
If the idea had succeeded, it would have meant that the faction that includes Ndhlela and other younger strategists, and perhaps Duduzile Zuma Sambudla's orbit, could strengthen their influence on Zuma. That would threaten other factions directly. Zuma's leadership style is to refrain from endorsing any specific faction early on. In this case, he appears not to have been against the idea as articulated at the media briefing. But once it became clear which the stronger faction was, Ndhlela was thrown under the bus. That is not because Zuma opposed him from the beginning, but because the political cost of defending him had become too high. But we should not lose sight of Zuma's age and how people are already positioning themselves for when he departs the stage. At the moment, the party is united by loyalty to him. The Institute controversy is therefore the likely manifestation of an early succession battle disguised as an organizational dispute. After all, there's a lot to gain from being at the right spot when that happens. But a few things simply don't add up. If I'm right and he did know about the Institute and endorsed it, why did he not say so? After all, no one would dare question him. This is typical Zuma though. This is his ANC intelligence experience coming to the fore. He functions best in a situation where everyone is guessing what he will do next. Once you think you have figured him out, he springs a surprise on you that will leave you reeling. Now let us look at how this matter has been handled, moving from the assumption that Ndhlela has a case to answer. For nearly 2 decades, Jacob Zuma has pursued every available legal avenue to defend himself against corruption-related charges arising from the arms deal. He has challenged prosecutors, appealed court rulings, questioned judicial impartiality, sought delays, and insisted repeatedly that he is entitled to full procedural fairness before any final judgment can be made against him. His supporters have long defended this approach as a principled exercise of constitutional rights and due process, arguing that no person should be politically condemned or punished before exhausting all legal remedies available to them. Yet the treatment of Ndhlela inside Umkhonto We Sizwe Party appears to contradict those very principles. Ndhlela was removed as spokesperson, sidelined politically, and publicly condemned without any visible, transparent disciplinary hearing or meaningful opportunity to defend himself. The contrast is striking. Zuma has spent years insisting that process matters, that fairness matters, and that no one should be judged prematurely. But within his own party, one of its founding and most loyal public figures appears to have been punished first and afforded process later. That perceived double standard reinforces the growing view that MKP operates less according to institutional rules and more according to shifting political power around Jacob Zuma himself. The speed with which Nhlamulo Ndhlela was removed and replaced strongly suggests that his exit was not a spontaneous disciplinary decision, but part of broader internal realignment already underway. In most political parties, a senior figure would first be suspended pending a hearing and replaced temporarily by an acting spokesperson. Instead, MKP immediately installed a permanent successor who was not even deeply rooted in the party's formal structures. Sfiso Mahlangu was still editor of the Star newspaper at the beginning of this month. That raises serious questions about whether plans to sideline Ndhlela had already been discussed behind the scenes before the MK Institute controversy erupted publicly.
We said his attention is divided because he's in Parliament and also he has to do organizational work. So rather, because of the task at hand, we should, consider taking somebody who's going to be full-time as the spokesperson. So it's a strategic intervention that we've made of bringing Comrade Sfiso Mahlangu, who's well experienced in the media space, with many capabilities that are going to help, the party.
More broadly, the episode reinforces the perception that advancement and survival inside MKP depends less on institutional rules or seniority and more on factional trust, proximity to Jacob Zuma, and shifting power dynamics within its inner circle. The arguments I make above are merely to point out the disaster that is the MK party. I'm in no way advocating for Ndhlela, the individual. He's at the receiving end of practices that he has been part of and has promoted and defended over the past 2.5 years. In any case, Ndhlela may not be out for long because he appears to have the support of Zuma's daughter, Duduzile. I doubt that any of the members of the faction that seems to be dominant at the moment can compete with her when it comes to influencing Zuma. Whether Nhlamulo Ndhlela truly went rogue or simply became expendable, his saga has exposed deeper tensions within the organization that cannot be easily explained away. In politics, when things stop adding up publicly, it usually means the real battle is happening behind closed doors. What do you think? Is Ndhlela sidelining a sign of decisive leadership or a party riddled with instability and lack of democratic foundations? Please share your views on this matter in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like, subscribe, and share the channel so we can continue growing the conversation. That was another episode of Joe Talks Politics. From me, Joseph Musia. See you on the next one.